Welcome to That Japanese Thing. Today we are talking about Komi. Komi can't communicate, the English title of the show. But before that, some Japanese news. And to talk about the news with me today are Yesh and Dylan. Welcome, guys. My name is Christopher, your host. Glad to have everyone with us.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, guys. So let's start off with some downers, I'm afraid. Not that bad, but people are protesting against Abe's funeral. And when I say people, I've only seen person in images, personally.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure how many people are really protesting against this. But the nature of the protest is that allegedly the state funeral for Abe, which is going to be done shortly, will cost more than the state funeral for the Queen.
Yeah.
Which either of them don't seem that outrageously priced, given that it is like a public event and so on and so forth. I think the Queen's funeral was something like £8 million, which frankly seems quite reasonable for all the stuff that had to be done, and we've seen on TV recently. The Japanese state funeral for Abe would be 13 billion yen, and I have no idea how much that would be in normal dollars. So it's kind of hard to tell with the yen at the moment because it's wildly fluctuating. Generally speaking, that would be about $13 million, I think. But it could be as low as 9 million, given today's exchange rate.
Mm.
Do you think this is a little scandal, or it's just people?
So, the primary reason you've only seen one person for it, largely in the pictures,
Indeed.
is because a monk burnt himself, set himself on fire for this as well,
Right.
and they're not showing his picture.
No, that is a normal thing. Unfortunately, that happens in Japan.
But my point was more that there are more people protesting this than just that one particularly vocal guy. It's just the rest of them are either trying to stay off camera or setting themselves on fire.
I just
Um,
I just feel with after Abe died, there was an election, and the LDP, which is Abe's party, got a really high percentage of votes. So I don't think it's a lot of people who are really against this. Maybe specifically they're against the cost, given Japan is not doing very well financially at the moment. On the other hand, it just seems like a big deal about nothing, really.
Yeah, I do think that politics obfuscates like the true support or lack thereof for the state funeral.
Indeed. On a different note, though, this is, I believe, the 13th time that the Japan Times has ran with a title that says Japan reopens. Today it says Japan reopens to independent travelers and lifts daily arrival cap. Kishida says. So
this is actually good news.
it is good news. I just want to point out, though, that the only thing that's different is they're sort of allowing visa-free tourism again. Which doesn't mean that if you're a country that originally had a visa and necessary to enter Japan, that suddenly you won't need a visa anymore. You still will. And they've lifted the cap of daily arrivals in Japan. So as many people as an airline or a ship or whatever can deliver to Japan is how many people they will allow in. And they're also doing away with some of the COVID testing. But they're not doing away with necessarily the guided tour kind of arrangement. So you'll still have to book through a travel agent and adhere to all the various, frankly, probably ridiculous rules at this point. But this looks like a good step in the right direction. So I think we can probably expect the rest of those regulations to fall away slowly over the next few months.
Away.
Yeah.
So Kishida has said at least the guided tourist part is going to fall away fairly. That is the next one they want to knock down.
Yes, yeah. one of the more humiliating things I think they make you do as a tourist is they make you sign a pledge to behave, which is just kind of insulting, isn't it? You know, they don't just expect you to adhere to the law, but they also want you to promise and pinky swear that you will behave. I think a lot of people, you know, quite rightly so, have some issues with that sort of requirement.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's getting easier and easier to go to Japan, and that's a good thing. And
Every time there's a headline saying "open," the door squeaks open by another millimeter.
it's like a scene from a movie where someone opens the door of their apartment, but the chain's still keeping it closed. You know.
Yeah.
The chain gets a little bit longer every time, though, and eventually you'll be able to squeeze through that gap. On to some anime news, because that's my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uncle from Another World has a release date confirmed for the 8th episode.
Really?
Thank God. Yeah, finally.
Don't get too excited. Before they release it, they're going to rebroadcast every episode from the third one on. So it's going to be released in November. Which,
okay. Yeah.
At least it's being released, but essentially that'll make it the next season's anime, I guess.
Yeah.
Again, for the second half of it. There were a number of reasons for this. The face-saving reason that they're saying is everyone in the office got COVID and they had to shut down production, which I'm sure is true. There was also management problems, though. And if it was just a COVID problem and people could get back to work after a few weeks, it wouldn't be months, you know, of delays. This is obviously something going wrong with, you know, people having probably personal issues with management and such, I imagine. But good news, we're continuing it, and it's not just going to be dropped. And that's good, because it's one of the better animes of this season anyway. We got a bunch of new anime coming out, and we will do a sort of review of anime after the first 2 or 3 have aired. Have you seen any of these upcoming anime yet?
Which one? Well, if you give me... So
Okay.
Chainsaw Man is one of the upcoming anime. I'm excited for that, obviously.
Yeah. So this is 33 new anime. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I think Yesh's favorite one will be Iruma-kun, season 3.
Iruma-kun is definitely very, very highly ranked.
But there's also Mob,
I love
so I'm not
manga.
sure which one, also season 3, which one you'll like more
Sadly,
of that.
Mob Psycho is actually beating out Iruma, which is total bullshit because Iruma is amazing. But Mob
Right.
Psycho's 3 is going to have the end of the Mob Psycho saga, which I genuinely consider one of the highlights of all of my manga reading I've ever done in my life.
So both of those things to look forward to, in my opinion, anyway. Even if you're not as super fan as we are. Do you know what the
if I
Legend
could
of
bring up
Mana
a
is?
couple. Legend of Mana is part of the Legend of series, which is a video game series that's very popular in Japan and around the world nowadays.
I think it's called the Holy Sword series or something, right?
So this
Sacred
is meant
Sword.
to fit into the same world, but I don't think it's related directly to a specific.
But I mean, it has the title Legend of Mana, and that is the general name for it, right? So this is Legend of
Legend
Mana
of-
colon
there's
the Teardrop Crystal. So that'll be
Teardrop.
yeah.
Legend of is actually the series name. Legend of Mana is one
Indeed.
of the 3 branches of it. Legend of East is another one, and I forget the third one.
But for people who don't know, this is based off a video game, right? Quite an old one, in
World
fact.
originally was a video game from the 80s.
Yes.
Early 80s.
Yeah. So it's
But
probably not.
had lots of sequels since then, and it's still alive. The Legend of series still makes releases semi-regular.
But the Legend of Mana, specifically this part of it, I think is from the 90s, if I'm remembering correctly.
There was a Legend of Mana in 2011.
Yes, but this one, right? This one.
I don't know what this one is related to specifically. From what I
Anyway.
understand, this
yeah.
is an independent story in the Legend of.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see what they do with it. It's just strange, kind of, to... I suppose it happens with video games. It's just not a particularly well-known one, at least in the West. Another one that caught my eye was I'm the villainess, so I'm taming the final boss.
Final boss.
It doesn't look
So this is going to be
great.
Mhm.
But I'm
I
going to
will
watch
say,
it, I think.
I think the studio really lowballed the effort on the art and animation.
It reminds me of My Isekai Life, right? Which is a show I watched
Yeah,
and
fair
almost
enough.
don't remember at this point.
I will say, from the manga side of things, the Otome game / villainess arcs are sort of the evolution of the isekai thing. It's the next step after isekai.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
what tends to happen with villainess ones is they tend to make all of the characters better written. In isekai shows, the characters are usually horrifically written, except for the standouts. In Otome game ones, they tend to put a lot more effort into the characterization. This one in particular, sadly, I will say, it dies after a while. But the first couple of episodes, the first 8 episodes probably, will be
I
very entertaining.
do feel like I've heard Yesh say that several dozen times. But anyway, after that, speaking of
I haven't-
lowballing the animation, there's
haven't been
one
wrong so
called
far.
The Human Crazy University,
Oh, I don't know this.
which is about an immortal being who appears to be a gangster. And it says, after being put on death row for murdering his fiancée, he gets sent to the Human Crazy University, which is a name only a Japanese person could come up with, to be experimented on. It has an interesting premise. The animation looks like Retsuko, basically, though. So,
Let's go. Come on, but that was very fun to watch.
yeah, Retsuko is great. Season 5 should be coming out, I think, in a few months. So, nothing against that style of animation.
But
Just
you
not
don't
sure a
think
lot
it
of money was put into this. So, hopefully, it's a good story.
complements this anime.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Uh,
If I can talk about a few anime. Sorry, do you have more?
I do, but go ahead, yeah.
Chainsaw Man, Studio Mappa has tweeted a bunch about it.
Mhm.
Now, usually, I would of course say that Chainsaw Man is a good manga, and I hope that it translates well. But Studio Mappa, firstly, is amazing. It's been a very powerful studio this entire time. And secondly, the fact that they are tweeting about it means they're excited. So now that's just pouring fuel on the fire here. I think Chainsaw Man's going to blow out this entire season. Mob Psycho 3, like I said earlier,
Indeed.
I just predict it's going to be amazing. They managed to get Studio Bones in back.
Yeah.
It looks like the animation quality remained good. I'm just hoping that we can get to the end of this without flubbing, but
You know,
it looks like we have a real chance of getting there. The whole journey looks like it has a real chance of being amazing.
that being said, Bones was also making My Hero at the same time, so hopefully it wasn't a split effort.
I don't think that anyone's putting effort into My Hero anymore.
Probably
even
not.
Uh,
Spy X
Family.
Family, yeah, also coming
Season
out.
2 is coming. Of course, I'd been hyping up Spy X Family before it launched in the first place, and then the fucking studio translated it beautifully. Same studio once again, Studio Cloverworks and Wit. They did a great job on season 1. Look out for that now.
Uzaki-chan Ozobitai, also coming out, season 2. That's just basically a cute girl kind of romance anime, if you've not watched it. But quite a popular one.
Eminence in the Shadow. Kaga no. I can't say this Japanese. I'm gonna leave that alone. Eminence in the Shadows. One
Yeah.
that we haven't seen before. The characters are not the best, but the humor in this one is top notch. I cannot wait for this to come out. My favorite part about this one is it's an isekai. I know we're getting tired of isekai. But it's an isekai about a guy that very badly wanted to be a mob character, but he ended up too powerful in the real world. He ended
Yes.
up too muscular and like amazing, basically. So when he died, he decided to become a mob properly in his second life. And he's this character with incredible skills who just uses them to play act failing at life. It's wonderful.
Just to mention a few more before we move on. What's it called in English? Fly Me to the Moon. Over the Moon? Something like that. It's a little high school, sort of post-high school romance thing, I guess. It's getting a cooking spin-off. So it's about this girl and guy who get married, and she does, in the show she cooks for him and stuff like that. And so this little spin-off is just going to be her cooking, I think. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Fate had its own cooking spin-off once upon a time, and that turned out well. I
Yeah.
wonder if this will do as well.
It might be. I think it's just a couple of episodes. It's not like a full series or anything.
I did forget to say there is a new Gundam series that's an actual Gundam
I was
series.
just about to get to that, but everyone has forgotten about it, right? Even us.
That's rather sad, but true.
Oh dear, we're getting what's that? I'm actually not going to mention that anime because it deserves to die. Yeah, that's everything major, I think. That I'm looking forward to at
didn't talk
least.
about Boku no Hero Academia and Bleach, but I'm willing to just ignore those.
Oh, we mentioned them. People who are watching Bleach are going to be watching Bleach. I don't think we need to bring it up. It's like mentioning One Piece as another series. You know?
I will say, since I didn't actually talk about it, but it was mentioned, Irumakun's arc this season is very similar to the arc in Naruto where they went into the forest to survive.
Yes.
It's actually a very good arc, so I'm looking forward to that.
Should be fun to have an Iruma Kun's.
Iruma's survival arc.
Yes. All right, Dylan, what do you have for us? I'm looking forward to this.
I have cyborg cockroaches.
Yay!
So the Riken Research Institute released a statement that a team of researchers have successfully implemented the first rechargeable cyborg cockroach. Basically, what they've done is they've mounted small electronics to a cockroach that allows wireless communications, help steer that cockroach's movements, and this is implemented by electrically stimulating a part of the cockroach called the circus or the
Right.
circus.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it.
So,
Yeah.
details aside, is this like so they can move a cockroach, basically?
They're claiming that this is to help advance the field so that they can implement cyborg insects for search and rescue.
Search and rescue. I'm sure that is entirely what the CIA is talking to them about.
Probably.
Um,
So I mean, apart from significant challenges in communications that I can see,
sure. Yes. Yeah.
it actually would probably be quite useful for that kind of problem. They also say that it'll be useful in areas that are dangerous or hazardous for humans to go into.
Probably true.
So, I don't know how likely it would be in the next, say like 50 years from now that we send cyborg cockroaches to go investigate a nuclear facility that suffered some form of meltdown.
That can't end well for us.
Yeah. That sounds like the beginning of a movie.
Japan sends nuclear powered cockroaches to investigate nuclear meltdown.
My cyborg kaiju roach.
2 years later, Mothra attacks Tokyo again. Oh yes. Okay.
And then we live in Starship Troopers.
Well, I mean, Starship Troopers at least happens on a different planet.
True.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah, we do. The government's also planning to do, and this is also controversial. It's planning to create and legislate a 10 trillion yen fund for universities, and basically, it's not like they're just making a fund to give money to universities. They're attaching strings to this. So
Sure.
the universities have to invest it in manners similar to Harvard and other Ivy League universities or institutes. And that's so that they can get an investment back on that they can plow into research. But even that would be a good sort of view of the project.
Yes.
What they're also trying to put in is to have a form of monetary metric associated with the research that can be candidates for funding.
This is one of the issues with the way the government in Japan does research funding, I think it's so laborious to get access to it. I feel it's not doing as much as they think it is.
Yeah, and it's come under criticism. I mean, rightfully so. I think it needs to be worked out. I think research should be funded, but
yeah.
And I don't have a wholly negative view of this, but it is something that kind of needs to be worked out or ironed out.
I mean, Abe had a program called Abe, right? Because of course he did. But it was like the African Business something initiative. I don't know what the E is supposed to stand for. Enterprise.
Yeah.
And it was basically a way of just sort of stealing smart people from universities to go work in Japan, right?
Yeah.
Very effective.
Incredible.
And they stopped that after a while because basically I think too many people were taking advantage of it. Not taking advantage of it per se, like it's a bad thing. But they were spending more money than they thought. And I can't help but think that was probably like just a good idea. Just it doesn't have to be specifically from Africa, right?
Sure.
But if you just headhunt smart people from universities and get them to work in your country, I mean that's what America did. Britain did that. Every successful country does that. That's just a good thing to
Those
do.
rules, by the way, are tied up in other ways in this as well. So yeah, it is there. It's present.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just as an ending note, like I think we're well aware that there are problems with academia in general, and that the publish or die mentality that's in it, and how that does affect research. And there is progress despite it, but you know, I've seen personally in the medical sphere, the progress is very much a
Sometimes
2 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of.
As someone who's experienced a lot of that bureaucracy and worked at a university, I think it would sometimes be more effective just to go to the quadrant of university and just drop a lot of money onto it and walk away than the way universities hand out money in its current situation.
Yeah, and this is this essentially this proposal is going to tie government closer to this. The Prime Minister is going to sit on one of the council seats, and that also is a bit controversial.
It will be very good for the universities. I don't know if it will be great for research. That is my only concern.
100%.
Yeah.
That is a very good way of putting it.
Yeah. Anyway, Yash, what do you have for us?
I've got 2 smaller stories because all of the major stories I found were too sad. Firstly, Hololive and Among Us have a collaboration which is quite significant in its own regard. Up till now, Hololive has had a bunch of collaborations within Japan. But this is the first time we've had a Hololive X something outside of Japan that anyone anywhere in the world can access relatively easily. Now, several skins within the game can be upgraded to have the hair and generalized appearance of the Hololive characters, while still keeping the Among Us big single central eyeball. It's actually incredibly cute, and I really appreciate that the VTuber culture is spreading to the point where a small Japanese company is now collaborating with a games company, and this has been ridiculously popular, so I feel happy about that.
Okay.
And then, secondly, Cyberpunk Edgerunners has launched to great international success. It is a little bit rare for an anime to do incredibly well in Japan as well as incredibly well outside of Japan. What a lot of anime companies have found is that something that appeals a lot to Japanese audiences sometimes rubs international audiences wrong.
That ties in quite well to Komi, though, because I think it's successful for exactly the same reasons as Komi was.
Perhaps. Edgerunners is quite dystopian for what a popular anime would be, but it just rubbed the Japanese well, and then it rubbed the Western audiences really well, because we're all feeling screwed over by corporate.
It's ironic, right? Because the cyberpunk genre is so heavily influenced by and vice versa. Like they kind of grew up in the 80s together with anime.
Not really. Cyberpunk comes from a specific novel.
Yeah, I am aware of Neuromancer.
Neuromancer, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was influenced by Japanese, for sure. I guess specifically.
But a lot of
the
80s
culture.
anime took a lot of influence from the culture of punk.
Yes.
Akira, for example, yeah. That's that sort of era of stuff.
A lot of give and take.
But that bloody, violent type of anime has been very firmly pushed into the back burner I will say in the last 20 years, I would suggest that I've seen less than 5 anime that have become even somewhat mainstream, that have a degree of significant violence.
That's it. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Cyberpunk Edge Runners has not only the violence, but it's violence in the center stage. It's not background. It's one of the focus.
We'll talk about. I think we'll talk about it as a main topic
Another time.
Yeah, another time. Yeah.
But what is significant is that its popularity has reached an over 80% positive rating on Rotten Tomatoes
Netflix.
and
Yeah.
IMDb. Well, I'm talking about rating sites in particular because Netflix.
Okay.
I don't want to be too dystopian, but I feel like many of these streaming sites alter their ratings depending on what they want to push.
I mean,
I mean, I might be.
I just don't
mistrusting.
don't see the reason they would do it for something so minor as this.
Well, I mean, Cyberpunk has actually increased Netflix subscription.
Sure.
Their watch hours have gone up very significantly.
Yeah.
And Netflix is busy spiraling at the moment, so I don't want to talk about the mechanics. Sorry, the point of the story is it's got an 80% positive rating in the West, and Japanese audiences have a very high positive response. They sadly are not publishing what those are, but after a month of airing, they tend towards giving some numbers out, and that's why I'm bringing it up today. It's been airing for 24 days, and we've got some numbers with regards to this. And the Japanese response is very positive, and the Western response is very positive.
Right.
All around.
But we'll talk about that another time.
Indeed.
Anything else?
Yes.
No, that's all I got. That's not depressing.
Sure. One more thing that I forgot to mention is that My Dress Up Darling is getting a sequel, and they announced that in a very cute little video thing that they did on. Can't remember the company that makes it right now. But yeah, so that's good. We're getting another one of those. I'm pretty sure that was like a guarantee because that show was very, very popular.
Was really quite popular.
I mean, the kind of doll that Goto makes in that show are sold I think in orders of 300,000 physical dolls from the supplier that makes them.
Yeah.
Just because of that anime. And they've probably funded off that. Nothing else. Okay, but to our main topic, Komi can't communicate. Suggested by Dylan Miesh? I can't remember.
It was.
Right. Would one of you take us with what it is?
Sure. Komi Can't Communicate is a school-based anime, a high school-based anime, following someone who has extreme social anxiety and makes a friend sort of almost by accident on her first day, and that friend opens up the opportunity to make a lot more friends, and her goal is to make 100. So the anime itself kind of has this sort of countdown feel to it, where she will almost on an episode by episode basis make more friends and get closer to the goal that she strives for.
Yes, 100 friends, yeah, in her little notebook. Just before we go into did everyone like the show?
I liked it.
Okay.
I liked the first part.
Right. I think it has some, not so much anxiety, but more like a split personality, with the first few episodes, maybe the first 6 episodes, being almost a different show to what it becomes. Is my just general take. The first episode I thought was just kind of amazing.
Brilliant.
It had the feel of Monogatari, the first episode of Bakemonogatari, and it had this really nice kind of artistic way of depicting text on a screen, and there was just a silence throughout, as because Komi can't speak really very well, so she has to find ways to write down what she's saying, and the ways they would depict that via words on the screen was just very beautiful, I thought, in the first episode especially.
Yeah.
But that stops very quickly, and she does. She never really gets the ability to speak properly, but they kind of skip over the whole the going through the trouble, I suppose it would be, to make that a constant part throughout the rest of the series. Is that unfair to say?
I don't think it's unfair necessarily, no.
Okay.
The strides that she does make are not, at least to the viewer, not so big that you could disagree with it. But yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you?
Progress in the first half of season 1 is quite significant and noticeable. You almost feel proud.
Yeah, in terms of getting friends, yeah.
And
being able
hanging
to.
out with.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are some pretty big steps.
Okay. Is it worth watching still?
I feel like the first season certainly is, but I think Yesh raised in earlier conversations that I've had with him, he raised a valid point, which is the eternal edging romance that never kind of materializes is a feature that I don't really appreciate in a lot of shows.
Okay.
And this definitely has that flavor. Yeah.
So.
And unfortunately, they stopped Komi-san's progress to keep the romance cycle.
Yeah.
I can't decide if it's actually a really good show or if it was just a very popular show that sort of plays to a few kind of common weeby traits. And it's on Netflix. It's a Netflix show, and I think that's why its numbers are so huge. So it has a real big global.
It was one of the
audience.
earliest Netflix shows as well, from an anime.
Yeah, sure.
The seasonal anime side. Komi was one of their first seasonal anime partners.
I mean, it wasn't that early. It was a 2021 show. Something like, Red Square and stuff would have been some of the really early stuff by quite a few years, probably. It's actually quite a recent manga as well, 2016, relatively speaking. Just to give some background information. Did you pick up on any of the everything is a pun in the show? So the show in Japanese is called Kami-san wa Komi desu, which means about Komi. She has Komi disease, whatever, communication disease, I suppose.
Yeah.
And her name is Komi Shoko, which is a pun because the Shoko part is like a symptom. So that's or disorder or whatever. And everyone in this show has a ridiculous name. So the male protagonist is Hito Tadano, which is person, just a person. We have Najimi, who is Najimi Osana, and of course Osana Najimi is childhood friend. And so he's everyone's childhood friend. And it just goes on. Everything is a pun in this show. And that's one of the delightful things I found about watching it. Is more or less the background stuff is why it becomes enjoyable to watch. Because after the sort of highlights of the first few episodes, where we have some kind of odd things happening, everything settles down into just a standard high school anime.
Yeah.
The people are all characteristic and a bit different, but they're not as different as they were promised in the first episode. I mean, we have ninjas and people in armor and promises of like school battles and things like that, and it doesn't really deliver on any of that. It just ends up being like a daily life of someone with mild anxiety about speaking in public. It's not even as if she really has a proper disorder where she can't at all do it. It is more just a sort of anxiety about doing it seems, because she gets gradually better and better over time as she sort of comes out of her shell. And I've heard people complain about that. It's not like a realistic depiction of someone with a legitimate version of this disease, whatever that disease may be called in English. Last point is that, yeah, nothing happens in this show. And that's fine. That's basically how Japanese TV, manga, anime works, right? We establish a set of characters and then we just accompany them throughout the rest of their show. And that's supposed to be the entertainment of seeing these different set of characters do all the same things in ways that they would do them. And I found it very relaxing to watch Komi Can't Communicate. But I don't think it was an outstanding show.
I definitely... I prefer progress in the stories that I consume. And that is definitely a criticism of the show. I also enjoyed it. I think it was fun. I don't know if it is as fun at the full 24 episode mark when there's no progress. It was certainly fun at the split break in the middle.
Sure.
But then I felt like, okay, we've established things, and now, and I know, this isn't the only show that can be accused of doing it, obviously.
Yes.
Quite a common thing, like you said. But it is one of those things. For me, it gets a bit tiresome. So by the end, I was like, there needs to be some development in terms of like the romantic element, whether they get together or not. I don't really care whether they decide, okay, let's rather be friends. But I would like that put to bed.
I don't know. I think it's quite clear by the end of the second season that they are basically dating.
But that's what we felt from episode 6, episode 10, episode 12.
Yeah, but that's not how it works in Japanese stuff, right? It's all about the winding up to develop the courage to, do the confession thing, right? And that kind of hasn't happened fully yet. And that's the entire tension of the show, and I'm fine with that. That's just the premise to establish why things are happening. I think they did like a lot of things quite well. I mean, they did things in interesting ways. They had a good Christmas episode. They did a good, school festival, so on and so forth.
Let's treat this as a product. If we're going to say that should be acceptable, that should be fine, let's treat it as a product.
Okay.
Its competitor is Kaguya-sama Love is War, which has the same no progress thing, except fun stuff is actually happening as well.
I mean, you can't say fun stuff isn't happening in this show. But it's a different kind of feeling. I mean, Kaguya-sama is about just that sort of feeling of constant anxiety throughout the show. And then it's got a lot more stupid kind of characters in the background to the conflict, sort of just creating trouble.
Who are all doing things to make fun, though. And also our main characters get involved in that fun in an entertaining way.
I mean, I love the rap battle. But that sort of stuff does happen in the show. But again, it's a more quiet kind of contemplative kind of show that you have to kind of just let kind of flow over you. I'm not saying, to me, they're both very comparable. I think I enjoyed them about the same.
Yes, you've read the manga. Does it progress in any other way?
So I think the annoyance I have is because the anime ends at the end of season 2. There's been 4, not novels, what are they called? Volumes. 4 volumes since then. At the end of season 2, it looks like there's a hint of progress, and then you'll never guess what happens, it gets reset.
Yeah. That is
and then we go through that again. And please note, the Valentine's Day arc, I don't know, the anime did it relatively fast. Where Tadano is like internally thinking, maybe I thought too much of my relationship with these people. Maybe actually we're not that close, etc., etc. The other girls, it turns out, were like holding back their chocolates because they wanted Komi to do it first. Because everybody knows Komi and him are into each other.
Yeah.
And she just like waffles and waffles and waffles. And in the anime, it's frustrating enough. In the manga, it was almost a month.
I agree with you. It was unbearable to watch at some points, right?
And then she started to walk away at one point, and then that went on for 2 weeks. And oh, you can roll me in a circle over and over again. Fine. Bring in the childhood friend to ruin romance. Fine. But like we're getting to a point where it's not just dysfunctional. It's now like you're taking me out of what's happening.
Yes.
This is no longer real. This is now an author blatantly saying,
But you
I
know,
need you to give me money into my retirement.
okay.
It doesn't feel real anymore.
I couldn't more disagree with that statement. I mean, this is just part of the genre, right? Very similar things happen in
I'm sorry, if
Kaguya-sama.
being kicked in the nuts is part of a genre, I'm still not going to enjoy it.
You're phrasing it way
Also-
too strongly. The anxiety-ish is why some people come to the show. I mean, it's not
As a note,
it's not necessarily like my cup of tea or your cup of tea, but
Yeah.
that's what people like about it.
yes, but people used to love Love
strained
Hina as
feeling.
well. Those people need to feel bad about themselves. Also, I
But
Fighting
read
words.
you say that,
volume-
but the same
like
feelings
Love
in the show make something like Toradora a good show. And just because this is like a Toradora for a different generation, and we can't really empathize with
Super
them
no.
anymore.
Super no. Those characters had lives out of each other that were fun.
A lot of people would argue with you on that, and I don't think it's as bad as you're saying it is. I just don't think. I think we're just so jaded at this point that we can't really appreciate that kind of like high school
I do.
purity arc thing anymore.
I do find it so entertaining though, so it works.
Yeah, right.
So in the next 2 volumes, we get another reset. Their childhood friend interrupts. He uses her as a crutch for a little while after that. She always just interrupts from that point onwards. And then, like, literally another, like, God help me. I've been watching this girl in her last year of high school for 4 years. And, we're in year 5 of me watching her in the last year of high school. And I just can't anymore. I don't care.
But I mean, that's something you're doing to yourself. To me, it's just 2 short seasons of anime. Because I haven't read
Meanwhile, in Kaguya-sama Love is War, I actually enjoy every episode. I actually have fun.
Yeah, I find Kaguya-sama a little bit exhausting at times, to be honest.
Fair.
Whereas this is a slower pace, and it just
But
doesn't
the problem, I think-
doesn't make me like expect things of characters, because they're kind of bad at doing things. In Kaguya-sama, everyone in that classroom, everyone in that student association is supposed to be a clever person.
Well,
And-
no. Only 2 of them are smart. The rest of them are just there. They're volunteers.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
Nobody else is supposed to be a genius. Only 2
I
of
mean,
them are called out. genius.
3 of them are ranked like 1 or 2 on their school results.
that's-
And the others are all like, heads of associations and, good at what they do. One of them is like a super assassin style butler. But they're all just bad at things. And it's entertaining. I think
Chris,
What's
do I
the
need
third
to
season
remind
called?
you
It's
that
called,
our
like-
introduction to our third friend in this was when she kidnapped a boy to murder him.
Yes. Yeah.
Do I
That
need
does
to
happen.
remind you
No,
that
no.
the second friend
yeah,
is
so what
busy
I
having
mean,
horny thoughts of being stepped on?
but I mean, I'm talking about
That's her
Kaguya,
only
right?
personality trait.
Yeah. I'm not talking about Yandere. What's Yamai, I think is her name.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
literally means disease. I mean, the author's very upfront, if you could speak a bit Japanese, about what these people are,
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're gonna tell me that the realism of these characters is a little bit lacking in that show, let's look at this one.
I mean, none of the shows are actually founded in reality at all. So they're both meta kind of dumps on the audience. The one is done through... They both have narrators, for one thing. They both have a lot of internal dialogue.
I will say, Komi-san's narrator is hilarious.
And
Probably the best part of the show.
Yes. Yeah.
apparently the English narrator is especially good. People keep telling me that they have a lot of weird ad-lib things that get left in.
They got a nasally, flat-toned guy to do it, so
Yeah.
any kind of straight humor just flies from him really well.
The narrator in Komi is nothing really, though. It's just someone to give you some information every now and then.
Yeah.
It has that sort of... It has the sort of the feeling of like a hospital voiceover kind of person. just delivering an announcement.
Okay.
Can the doctor please come to the room? You know, every episode it sort of starts with a reminder that Komi's this way because she has, you know, this disorder sort of thing, right? Bear in mind that. Whereas Kaguya-sama is all about like keeping things somewhat upbeat, right? There's never a moment of stillness in that show. And so I don't find them comparable in some of the ways I think you think they're comparable.
What do you guys think about the ops and eds if you've watched them?
For Komi, I didn't notice them at all.
Oh, really? I quite like season 1's op and season 2's ed, and then vice versa were not really
Not so great.
not so great.
I didn't watch the ed for season 2. I don't watch eds too much, I must. But the op for season 1 was a bit of a bop. I liked it.
I just vaguely remember that they had all the words on the screen, which is a thing that sometimes happens in ops at the moment. But I mean, it makes sense for Komi, because that's like a thing, right? All the communication gets done via writing.
Yeah.
They do that incidentally in Call of the Knights op as well, where all like the words of the song are introduced in like interesting ways throughout the opening. I think that op is like way better than anything that's in Komi. Voice actor wise, is there anything to mention at all?
I mean, they're like I feel like they chose the voices for the archetypes pretty well, if that makes sense. But that does mean that nothing really stands out for me.
I didn't really think there was anything in particular that made anyone. I don't know. Like, there's been some anime recently, like Ricorous Recoil, that had amazing voice acting. And there's been some stuff like Call of the Night, which has like a sort of weird characteristic kind of voice acting. This was middle of the road, I think, for most of the time. I think Yamaya is maybe the most interesting voice in the show, but also is quite annoying. So,
Childhood Friend had a very lively voice.
Maybe let's talk about the characters a little bit. Let's start with Osana, childhood friend person.
Yeah, Najimi.
What did you think about their like little I don't know, personality thing here? So I think this person is sort of included in like a kind of Netflixy way to, you know, tick a lot of boxes. We have the person that's playing the childhood friend, but is playing the person that plays all of the childhood friends from everyone in the school and beyond. I love how like he, she, it goes to the festival with everyone, and it's just like a crowd, as if everyone in the festival is just accompanying Najimi.
The super networking power of that woman. Being friend number 1 for Komi is like a super boost as well.
Yeah.
In the manga, is Najimi also a crossdresser?
I think it's weirder than that, right? Because it's implied that maybe Najimi was a boy for the childhood part of the childhood friend thing.
Yeah.
Or at least Tadano viewed her as a boy.
Boy, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're not sure whether like what that is, like how they presented is the only thing you know, right?
Because throughout the show, I mean, a lot of like the writing says, you know, like nature unknown, right?
Yeah.
As if this person is just a being beyond assigning a gender, so to speak.
Because
Serious.
the way Japanese works as a language, they don't actually have a gender in like he, she.
They do.
Well, like when sentences are said, they don't usually refer to your sex in the sentence.
No, but I mean, there's a lot of other markers for that.
Yeah,
like,
there's other markers, but what I'm saying is, when you read the manga, the TL people, the translator,
yeah.
they leave you little notes about stuff like when they're translating, because you can't get 100% translation.
Sure.
You get a translation from what they understand the person's trying to say, and a lot of the translator notes, from what I remember, were like they're not specifying boy or girl, which is weird. Normally you'd say "ona" or something like that.
No, that's what I'm saying. Throughout the series, no one ever calls.
For her, it's never ever brought up for her.
Well, I mean, other people say it but it's never done from like an omniscient point of view. So the narrator never comments on it. Tadano at some point calls Osama like, like an incarnation of Buddha a few times. I think that happens. As if this is just some strange, not quite female, not quite male, not quite anything person. I think that's what they were going for. At least that's the way it feels. And you'll notice that he, she, it never uses a change room that is assigned to gender either.
Yeah, but also at one point, he, she, it sits on Tadano's lap at a public gathering, and nobody treats that as like unusual.
Yeah.
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 That's
It's very normalized. Yeah, which is something I actually like quite a lot. They don't make it. They don't make a token of it, and that it just fits naturally in the story. That's
another character that did make me feel uncomfortable was Agari, which is the dog-like character.
Oh, I kind of loved Agari though.
Did you? Okay.
Well, you know that I'm strange, so.
No, I get that.
She's got lots of humorous points.
She also
But,
owns
like,
it, right? She owns it
think-
so much.
I think I just get angry about that stuff in romances. Because the problem with romances is we're going to be here for the rest of our lives. It's never going to end.
Yeah.
So I need characters to be characters. And she's treated as the butt end of a joke, and that's it. There's
Yeah.
like nothing about her that's a person.
I agree with Yesh in that way. She doesn't really have anything beyond the fact that she likes to be mistreated.
Yeah, I mean, look, so I'm not defending that. That's true. I do feel like each of the characters is a heavy stereotype and isn't really a whole person in their own right. I was gonna like make a comment earlier and then thought better against it, but like a valid twist, maybe not a good one, but a certain valid twist at the end of the story might well be someone claiming that these are all basically personalities inside a single person's head. Like
That would be interesting. Unlikely, I think.
I know, sure, 100% unlikely, but like it would also make sense given the fact that, like I was saying, everyone in there is a huge stereotype. They're not like a deeply complex character at all.
The one character is called no Koko Inaka, or in Japanese Inaka no Koko, which means a girl from the countryside.
Yeah.
And she just is. That's all she is. She's the one that follows Kami around, thinking she's a perfect example of a city girl.
Following her around with her eyebrows.
With her eyebrows. I love those eyebrows. Those eyebrows have more character than a lot of people on this show.
Yeah, 100%. They're great.
There's a white guy as well in the classroom. I can't remember which one it is.
Protag. I can't remember his real name.
But
The blue-haired guy.
his function is to just make interjections that a normal like white dude bro who's into Japan would make. Like at one point he just says ninja wa nonsense desu. Like ninjas are nonsense.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And I found a lot to enjoy in the show. It's not a perfect show. It's not great. I'm not even sure it was my favorite high school romance show of that season, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it was very watchable, and I
feel
didn't
like
feel bad about
Shikimori
watching
is.
it.
But I wouldn't put Shikimori and this show in the same kind of grouping in my mind anyway, even though they're both school-oriented.
But they all do the same events, right? So and that's all these shows are. They're just doing the same things in different ways, and
Sure.
you either find some sort of like weird kind of entertainment that way, or you don't. And it's very easy to understand why someone wouldn't like it. Also very easy to understand why someone would like it a lot. I think it never achieved that kind of waku waku kind of Spy X Family vibe, though, that maybe Netflix was expecting it to.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You don't see a lot of like Kami avatars in comments and things like that, but you'll see a lot of, what's her name, Anika, is it? I can't remember the name of the girl in Spy Family. Anya. But yeah, I think it was for me I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. Solid, easy to watch show.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Let's start
I
with
got
Ish.
through-
Good
sorry,
in, good
yeah.
in. Yeah.
Oh no, it's all good. Yes.
I would give it a 5. It's not a bad show. I just don't think it's a good show.
Fair enough.
Wasn't a like sorry, just getting this right. Going back a couple of months ago when I asked about ratings wise, a 6 is still worth your time. It's not great, but a 5 is not worth your time. Was that about right?
Yes. In my opinion, you're literally chewing cardboard watching the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think you're chewing cardboard up to episode 12 or 13. I think past that, that's when I started getting tired of it. So I really liked it, especially in that beginning phase. But then I needed there to be progression, which I'm asking too much from that genre, and I
You
do
are.
realize that. But I do want a subversion of that genre now. You know, and they I'm sure they have been, but it gets tiresome for me. That
They
romantic
exist,
thing is
but
not
you
a-
know, as some people have pointed out, these shows need to continue going on for a while,
To pay for the author's retirement, yes.
and so there
Yes.
can be enough episodes, right?
See, but I find that entertaining. That is worth watching the show for me. Is to have
It's
the human
but
behind
but
it.
I mean, it's the genre. It's weekly shonen, you know.
I know.
I think expecting it to be short and punchy is just not what it is.
sure, but I can criticize the genre as well.
I watch fishing
Legitimate.
shows. I don't
I've-
expect short. I expect to be entertained. This isn't entertaining anymore.
I mean, I've watched like 6 animes about fishing.
I know. I
They're
enjoy
not
them.
about anything, and this is also not about anything. And I don't know. I would say all of the fishing shows I enjoyed more than Komi, because
Look,
they're
just
at
because you
least
enjoyed
kind
the
of.
Endless 8 doesn't mean I need to watch it on repeat.
I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but I have watched it twice. But I mean, this I'm agreeing with you, Yash. That's what I'm trying to do here, but you're interrupting. This is worse than the fishing shows, for sure, because there's nothing new in it.
Yeah.
You know, the fishing shows at least teach you about fishing, right? Or the mountain climbing show teaches you about mountains, or what's the Eurocamp teaches you about camping. But that's the draw in them. They teach you about an activity. This is about a mental disorder, and it doesn't deliver on that premise because it doesn't actually teach you about that mental disorder because it's not a
after
real
certain
one.
episodes, It
That
becomes
is
about the
valid.
romance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which in itself is kind of odd to me because I keep imagining what it would be like to be with someone that's like Komi. I don't want to say be with someone with that disorder because, like you quite rightfully keep saying, there's a lot of criticism that it's not accurately portraying. But
Yeah.
but to be with someone like Komi, you've constantly got to be, you know, the main actor in whatever action is taking place. It just seems so exhausting to me. Like I don't think I could do that.
For me,
Yeah.
this show reads as a show where the author wanted to make this never-ending romance, but his initial pitch didn't get accepted. So he came up with a different pitch. And after 3 or 4 books, he was like, cool, I fulfilled my obligation for that pitch. Now back to the endless romance, and threw out the original concept.
The thing though is it doesn't fulfill a lot of the story arc quotas for those sort of, you know, endless romance kind of things to be in a show because it doesn't have like a love triangle,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's just Komi and Tadano, and there's no other interest. Komi is like incapable of being part of a love triangle because everyone else is scared of her. That he tried to fix that with having the big guy. I can't remember what his name is.
I think it's
Who has a bad stutter,
is it Tata?
and so he's vaguely interested in Tadano because he sees him
Yeah.
like as his ideal like man senpai kind of guy, right?
Hey, Chris,
Yeah.
you know that sentence you just said, Komi is nice because it doesn't have a love triangle?
Yeah.
You'll never guess what happens immediately after Valentine's Day.
Sure. I mean, let's see how that works out, though. I don't think it's physically possible with the premise. That's given in this show for it to actually be like a
It
legitimate.
isn't, but if
Yeah.
you look at time often enough, it can work. So it turns out Tadano had a girl from his previous school that was.
Oh,
interested in,
okay.
but
I guess that
she-
makes sense, right?
She wasn't confident in herself, so she didn't come forward.
Yeah.
And so now she's a Gyaru who's aggressively chasing after him. And Komi has to compete except she...
Oh, I've seen pictures.
Rumiko.
I don't. But you know, he's not the main character, so it doesn't
Yeah,
actually matter,
yeah.
right? If Kami was interested in another person, that would be interesting.
But she's
Just
interested
no,
in
yes,
him,
yes.
and-
Remember, she's God. It doesn't matter what Tadano wants. He's literally just a guy.
Yeah, yeah. A guy, just a guy.
Yeah. So I'm
Sorry,
sure that goes nowhere, and I'll happily watch it go nowhere.
I'm having too much fun in this conversation. Terrible.
Okay. I don't think we have much more to say though. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah, there's not much more of the show to really talk about, to be honest.
No, it was. I think people thought it was going to be a sensation, and it was just kind of okay.
Yeah.
Happily watch the new season because I just need Japanese content to keep being produced for something for me to watch. Because I have no faith in Western content anymore.
Yes.
Right.
Yep, we're on that
So
boat together, my friend.
thank
We
you
are
for
on
being
that
a
boat.
show that exists that I can watch, Komi. That's my ultimate review of it.
Next season has like 6 shows that are fantastic. So I'm looking forward to finding the time to fit 3 of them in.
Indeed. All right. That'll do it for us for this week. Thanks for listening, guys. Ciao for now.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye bye.